If you own a Rolex and you've been telling yourself, at worst, I can always sell it, it's time for a reality check. That assumption is no longer true. The idea that a Rolex is instant cash, that you can walk into a dealer, hand it over, and leave with money the same day, has quietly collapsed. What's happening right now isn't a negotiation phase. It isn't dealers playing hardball. It's something far more serious. The watch market has entered a freeze, and dealers across the world are saying the same thing. We're not buying. This moment has a name inside the industry. It's being called the Great Refusal, and it's the reason your watch may suddenly be impossible to liquidate. Before we break down exactly why this is happening and what it means for your collection, make sure you're subscribed, because this shift isn't temporary, it's structural. For nearly 5 years, the secondary watch market lived in fantasy mode. Prices only moved in one direction. Watches weren't treated like timepieces. They were treated like assets, trades, even savings accounts. People flipped submariners like stocks. Datejusts were treated like bonds. Daytonas were seen as blue-chip investments. That era is over. What we're seeing now is the hangover after a speculative binge. Dealers aren't slowing down because demand dipped slightly. They're pulling back because the math no longer works. This is survival mode. Why dealers are afraid to buy your watch. The first domino to fall was cheap money. The gray market only functioned because financing was almost free. Dealers didn't use cash. They used credit, inventory loans, floor plans, lines of credit backed by watches sitting in safes. If a watch sat unsold for 6 months, it didn't matter. Borrowing costs were low, and prices kept rising anyway. That equation has flipped completely. In 2025, financing inventory is brutally expensive. Reports now show luxury asset loans carrying monthly interest rates between 2.9% and 10%, which translates to 20 to 35% APR in some cases. That means if a dealer buys your watch and doesn't sell it quickly, it becomes a money-losing liability almost immediately. Time risk is now the enemy. So dealers are doing the only logical thing. They're refusing to take the risk. The inventory problem no one talks about. Here's the ugly truth. The market isn't short on watches. It's drowning in them. But it's not just about quantity. It's about what kind of watches are flooding the system. Entire categories of Rolex inventory are now considered toxic. Two-tone models, mostly unbuyable, mid-size and ladies' watches, dead weight, older gold references, sometimes worth more melted than worn. Dealers aren't being rude when they decline your watch. They're protecting themselves from inventory that could sit for a year while bleeding interest costs. Some gold Rolexes aren't even being resold anymore. They're being scrapped, cases melted, bracelets refined, movements parted out. To a dealer, those watches aren't history or heritage. They're raw material, where the buyers went. Ask yourself, who was driving demand in 2021 and 2022? It wasn't traditional collectors. It was crypto money, stimulus cash, hype culture, people who believed watches would always go up. That buyer is gone. The same group that once paid premiums is now trying to exit. Fast. Everyone is selling. Almost no one is buying. Dealers know this. They're not going to be the emergency ATM for investors who missed the top. The consignment trap. So if dealers aren't buying for cash, what are they offering? Consignment. This is where the risk quietly shifts onto you. On consignment, the dealer spends none of their own money. They list your watch, take a commission, often 15 to 30%, and wait. If the market drops, that's your problem. If the watch sits unsold for 4 months, that's your problem. If the dealer goes bankrupt while holding it, good luck. Consignment isn't a favor. It's proof that liquidity is gone. The scarcity story has collapsed. For years, the gray market thrived on one idea. You can't get this at retail. That's no longer universally true. Authorized dealers are quietly restocking. Exhibition-only signs are disappearing. Models like Datejusts and Yachtmasters are increasingly available. At the same time, Rolex is expanding production, opening new facilities, and increasing output just as demand softens. If someone can walk into a boutique and buy the same watch at retail, your secondary market value gets crushed instantly. Dealers holding those models are underwater, and they're not buying more. Tariff fear is paralyzing the market. Now add one more layer of uncertainty: tariffs. There are credible discussions of Swiss luxury goods facing tariffs as high as 39% entering the US. That single variable destroys international arbitrage, the backbone of the gray market. Dealers don't know how to price risk. If they buy now and tariffs hit, demand collapses. If they wait and tariffs don't happen, prices could still fall. So they freeze. No buying, no checks, no inventory expansion. Rolex CPO made everything worse. Then there's Rolex's certified pre-owned program. CPO watches sell at a massive premium, often 25 to 40% above normal secondary prices, because they carry Rolex's seal and warranty. That creates a psychological anchor. Owners see CPO prices and think their watch is worth that amount. Dealers can't sell at those prices and won't buy anywhere near them. The result? Failed deals everywhere. Sellers angry. Dealers defensive. What still moves and what doesn't? The list of watches dealers are willing to buy is now extremely short. Steel Daytonas. Cautiously. Pepsi GMTs. Still strong, but softening. Steel Submariner date. Treated like cash, but trending down. Everything else is radioactive. Hype dials corrected hard. Green Daytonas collapsed. Bright OP colors lost their premiums. And there's a generational shift making things worse. Younger buyers want smaller, quieter watches. Cartier, vintage, understated pieces. Big, flashy sports watches are aging poorly. What this means for you? This isn't punishment, it's math. Liquidity is no longer guaranteed. A Rolex is not a savings account. Selling now means waiting, or accepting a painful discount. Dealers aren't villains. They're navigating high interest rates, shrinking demand, tariff risk, and collapsing margins. The party ended, the music stopped, and the exit is crowded. So here's the real question for you. Would you rather consign your watch for months and hope prices stabilize, or take a brutal cash offer just to get out immediately? Drop your answer in the comments.